r/rules horror. Hosted by you/idontlikepapaya. I house sat with something that resembled human and I broke an important rule. Part 2. Friends. Part 1, video link in description. I wanted to convince myself that everything was a bad dream and that I would wake up eventually, but obviously that was not the case. The blood stain on my clothes and continuous call from Daniel served as a reminder of what I did. For several days, I hid in my apartment, looking at people walking by outside and wondering if any one of them could have been Thomas. When I closed my eyes at night, I could still hear his horrible laughter echoing through the wall. I knew he would come for me sooner or later, but I didn't know in which form. He had my face now. And I assumed that he would be able to impersonate other people too after I had accidentally released him. I had unleashed something horrible due to my carelessness, but I didn't know what to do to fix it. Eventually, the call from Daniel stopped. I knew ignoring those calls was a bad move, but I really couldn't make myself pick up. I was too scared. But I couldn't hide forever. On the 4th day, I went back to work. Everything was normal, but I could barely concentrate. I kept looking at the bar patrons and my colleagues, asking myself if one of them could have been Thomas trying to trick me. The busy and loud bustling bar which I once loved had become so suffocating I almost cried. The anxiety was eating me alive and I knew I had to do something. Daniel didn't come in. I called him after work, but nobody picked up. I almost had a heart attack when he walked into the bar the next night. Frozen in fear, all I could do was stare as he walked closer. Daniel was in his usual formal clothing, but he looked exhausted. His clothes were wrinkled and looked like they were put on in a rush. Was it really him? It had to be. Thomas didn't know where I worked. I told him I worked at a bar, but I didn't tell him the exact location. I didn't think he even knew what a bar was. While I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive Daniel for tricking me to spend a night with that demon, I was relieved to see him alive. Daniel, on the other hand, didn't seem so happy to see me. "Emma, do you realize what you have done?" he whispered through his teeth, leaning over the counter. "We are in deep trouble now. Thomas is gone." I didn't mean to release him like that. What should we do?" The words flooded out as my repressed anxiety exploded. I could barely see his face through my tears. And he has my face now. Oh God, what even is he? "Calm down for now. We can still fix this, but I need your help." Daniel looked around the bar as if to make sure that nobody was listening. "We have to go back to the house. I need to show you something." We took my car, as Daniel didn't bring his. I told my colleagues that I was leaving early and they seemed concerned, eyeing Daniel up and down suspiciously. They must have noticed that I was on the brink of breaking down and wondered if Daniel had anything to do with it. There were so many questions I wanted to ask him as we drove, but all I could do was quietly sob and try to focus on the road. Daniel didn't once try to console me. He just closed his eyes and seemed to be deep in thought. The street was brightly lit but the house was dark. No lights were on. As we walked towards the front door, a middle-aged man emerged to view from one of the adjacent houses, as if he had been waiting for us to arrive. Daniel looked visibly annoyed. "Hey there, neighbor," the man said. Although he was talking to Daniel, his eyes were fixated on me. "I hope this is not a bad time, but we heard some noises from your house the other night, and I guess I just want to make sure that everything's alright." "Everything's fine," Daniel answered coldly. "Oh, okay. That's good to hear." Again, he was glancing at me. "I don't know what you folks are doing there. And I don't want to meddle in your relationship, but keep it down, will you? My children are starting to ask questions." I was puzzled. Meanwhile, Daniel just smiled politely. "Please, mind your own business." We went inside the house, leaving the neighbor to awkwardly stand there. There was no sign of Thomas, only the mess of destroyed furniture and blood splatter he caused the other day. I tried not to look inside the kitchen. The image in my memory was vivid enough as it was and I certainly didn't need the reminder about the frightening things that transpired there. Daniel didn't say anything else as he led me through the hallway. That was when I noticed a trail of blood leading to the basement door. The door was made of metal and looked to be unusually secure for an ordinary house. Daniel paused and I could feel my heart beating so fast as though it was going to explode. I couldn't bear the silence anymore. "What's going on here? Say something." Daniel sighed. "The rules were simple, yet you managed to break them. People paid for your mistake, Emma. When you freed Thomas, everyone outside was fair game for him. He enjoyed the freedom for a while, but the hunger eventually kicked in. As he opened the door, a putrid stench of rot attacked me. I had a very, very bad feeling about this. Watch your steps. You don't want to end up like them." The basement was brightly illuminated with rows of fluorescent tubes. Lying in the middle of a white tiled floor were 3 male bodies, each bloodied and battered. It looked like they had been dead for a few days, and there had been an attempt to dismember them, though unsuccessful. Several bloody knives and saws were strewn on the floor. Oh my fucking god. Did Thomas do this? I almost fainted, but Daniel grabbed my arm so that I wouldn't tumble down the stairs. As he helped me down, I noticed that apart from the bodies, the basement was filled with large refrigerators and butchering equipment. I couldn't help but think back to the meat in the fridge upstairs. Did I watch Thomas eat a person the other day? Like I said, he was probably hungry. Going outside must have been exhausting for him. Caught some humans, but didn't know how to prepare them. Daniel. I mean myself, didn't teach me that. I messed up. He turned to me as I backpedaled towards the stairs. Thomas smirked. It seems I talked too much and exposed myself. Isn't that right, Emma? I was so dumb. I fell for his trick. You. Thomas let out a soft chuckle. The way he talked changed to the emotionless, monotonic voice that continued to haunt my dream. If you run away now, I will hunt you down and eat you, Emma. I believe it is in your best interest to listen to what I have to say. I froze in place. This thing knew where I worked, and now that it could roam free, I knew it would not hesitate to kill me this time. I didn't have a choice after all. Thomas gestured to a small chair in the corner of the room. Now please sit down, Emma. I did what I was told as he tossed away Daniel's glasses and rubbed his eyes. About time. This face accessory is giving me a headache. I don't know why Daniel wears it. Humans are really weird. Where's Daniel? The real Daniel. Did you kill him too? My voice was shaking. I looked at the 3 corpses on the floor, but none of them looked like Daniel. No, why would I do that? That would be against the deal. Daniel was very mad at the mess you made. He tried to trap me, and when that didn't work he tried to kill me. Not very polite of him. It was not my fault that he lost his mind and ran out into the void. Daniel is fine, you see. I hope he enjoys my old home. He might get a little bored, though. I was on the brink of crying, but I needed to keep it together and buy myself some time. There were many objects in the room that could be used as weapons, but could this thing really be killed? Thomas just stared at me, and added, in what I could only interpret as a morbid attempt to show empathy. There is no need to be upset. I believe Daniel had expected me to eat you that night, therefore you just got your revenge. What the fuck do you want from me then? I screamed. I want to offer you the same deal I offered Daniel years ago, with some minor adjustments. The same deal? You see, I like being free, but I cannot roam this plane without a master. My deal with Daniel was terminated after he tried to kill me, so I figure you could be my new master, he said. What? Listen to me first, Emma. Thomas interrupted. This will be beneficial to you too. Daniel wanted wealth, and I provided that to him. I can do the same to you, be it wealth, fame, revenge, or power. You name it, and I will make it come true. But no more trapping me inside the house. I am not making the same mistake I did last time. No. Leave me alone, I yelled. Think carefully, Thomas smirked as he gestured towards the corpses. I can also make this go away. How will you explain this to the police without my help? It has nothing to do with me. I didn't kill them. You did. Oh. It was absolutely you. I diverted my attention from him to the corpses for less than a second, but a familiar voice immediately made me look up again. Standing there, still smirking, was myself. It was even worse than when he looked like Daniel. I never knew that my own face could be so evil. I used your face to lure these men in, he said, in my voice. It made me so disgusted I felt sick in the stomach. Male humans are surprisingly easy to capture once offered a promise of reproduction. I'm sure the neighbor saw that too, as well as several other people at this bar establishment. This face is very convenient, it might be my favorite. How? I stood up. I dare say that my imitation of you was excellent, to say the least. He started to laugh while stroking his long brown hair, mocking me. You should really reconsider my proposal. Fuck you. Something came over me. It must be the sight of my own face being used by this revolting demon that sent me over the edge. I didn't allow myself to think as I grabbed the closest knife off the floor and stabbed it right into his neck with all my strength. I have never stabbed a person, but it was nothing like what I expected. I saw the knife go into his neck, but somehow it felt as if I was stabbing air, like my knife was stabbing into something that wasn't there. Everything was so surreal, almost like time slowed down. Thomas fell to the floor. He was still laughing as I repeatedly stabbed his face, which gradually melted into nothingness. There was so much blood in the beginning, but then it stopped. His laughter also stopped. As I panted and looked down, there was nothing there but the black void. It was staring back at me. A loud gasp pulled me back to reality. The neighbor whom we had talked to earlier was halfway down the stairs. He was staring at me in horror, mouth agape with shock. No. It's not human. This demon. I quickly stood up to show him, but it was no use. The void demon, or whatever it was, had taken the form of Daniel's face again. He just lay there in the big pool of blood, face stabbed to the point of being unrecognizable. No matter how you looked at it, he was dead. Fuck. From this man's view, I just murdered Daniel. The neighbor stumbled up the stairs, screaming. I swore I didn't have time to think, I just needed him to stop running and be quiet. It was horrible and I never knew I could be capable of such a thing. My body moved by itself as if it was controlled by a sinister force. I stabbed him in the back. The man fell forward onto the hallway's carpet. I screamed and dropped the knife. A woman was in front of the house when I ran out, possibly the neighbor's wife. She let out a blood-curdling scream as she saw me covered in blood. There was no use in trying to explain, I just hopped in my car and sped away as fast as I could. I didn't know where to go. I knew I couldn't go back home, the police would find me there. There was no escape this time. The woman saw me leave the house, the knife with my fingerprints was left there, and if the neighbor survived, he would tell the police I killed all those guys and tried to murder him too. And even then he would be partially right, I did try to kill him. What was I thinking? I had been driving nonstop for 2 hours now, bawling my eyes out. I could go no longer. I just knew that Thomas would find me. I could feel his presence following me like an inseparable shadow. Even worse, when I looked in the rearview mirror, I could no longer see myself. There was only a black void where my face should have been, and it was staring back at me. Something told me that had I accepted his offer, this would have never happened. A notification on my phone went off. There was a text from Daniel's number. Good attempt. I'm impressed. My heart sank. What should I do? Another message came through just now. Have you made up your mind?